just because we did barbering doesn't mean we are barbers.
And that is something I think people really could take away from this conversation.
The set of skills that I have will take me from one place to the next, just like they did with cycling.
Especially now in 2025, try not to identify too much with the vehicle that you've chosen, because that could equally hold you back. Try to build skills that will drive any vehicle.
You know, we have a little breakout mastermind group that we have on Facebook, and these guys are just like, yeah, just did 120k this month, just did 109k this month. And it's like, well, fuck, that's the level, like that's the standard. It's just a normal conversation.
And I get it, it's scary, it's different, all different things are scary, but everything's scary and hard until it's not. And most people hate what they don't understand. And it just takes a conversation with someone like yourself or someone like me, and I can reframe your mindset in about 10 minutes, and they go, oh, that doesn't sound as difficult or as hard as I once thought it was. And you're like, wow, I want to do that too.
I just knew early days that if you can turn your life into a story and you can tell it, doesn't matter how boring you might think it is. Everyone has a bias that they think that their own story is the most boring story in the world, but to somebody else it's the most interesting story in the world.
The difference between building a social media page and revealing a personal brand, they're two very different things. And now
I think it's worth mentioning, can't just ignore the fact that we're in a fucking jungle. Like, you know, like, we can't just ignore the fact that we're in a jungle right now.
Wonder if I got caught on camera.
A fucking bat, man. It's been a while since we've done one of these. And off the cuff,
yeah.
And off the cuff.
We used to do it like this all the time.
I know. Now we've gone down the whole like scripting road, and it's more like, I do like the idea of it being like planned.
Yeah.
I just filmed a piece of content there and it was just kind of like what was in here, you know. I think the reps certainly is something to be spoken about. We feel like new to YouTube, right? It's like a new to YouTube type of thing. But like, look at our account. Like the other day, you're like, oh, we're on like 89 subscribers, but there's like 89 videos as well.
Yeah.
And when you go on a long format podcast like this or a conversation like this and you do it 89 times, and like that's not even the previous podcast either. So we would have done this over 100 times now.
Yeah, it's a lot of hours.
It is, and like, you know, we meet people, young kids these days, or young guys who come to our course and they're like, how do you like speak like that? And even some of the biggest educators in the world, when they met us, they were like, how do you guys like speak like that? And it's like, because we've spoke like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of the answer. It's just reps sometimes. Yeah. It's just doing the reps.
That's something that I just said in my piece of content, was the confidence doesn't come before the reps. It comes from the reps. And that's just something that you can't ever outperform sometimes. It's like that whole, we've been reframing it lately thanks to Uncle Hormozy, like the be, do, have framework. It's like, no, how about instead of waiting to like be someone and then maybe I'll start talking about it, how about just start talking about it, do something. So do, be, and have. Talk about it, do something. All of a sudden, the perception is you are just someone because you're the person that talks about those things, and then you get to have everything you ever wanted.
I know. There's something about like the environment we're in. I think it's worth mentioning. You can't just ignore the fact that we're in a fucking jungle. Like, you know, like, we can't just ignore the fact that like, we're in a jungle right now. And like, I think a big part of like the level up for us right now is like where we're at in like life and in business. It's like who we're spending our time with, what we're spending it doing. But like, it does frame up that do, be, have framework very, very well, because doing the thing is like committing fully to the process, moving to Bali, being in the environment. But first you have, the thing you have to do first is book the flight, like to get here. Now we're here, and it's just like the opportunities and the conversations that we're having are just like this all of the time.
Yeah.
You know, there's no real having to go and find it, you know. You know, it sounds cheesy, like the power of environment and like, you know, proximity is power. We've done it all. We've got podcasts on all of it. And I still believe it firmly, if not more firmly, to today than I ever have. But there's a lot to be said for it from an energetic standpoint. I think just being around other people and just being in their presence sometimes isn't enough, because at the end of the day, you still have to do the things to be the person, to have the life. Like, you can be around people and still do nothing. You know, it still takes doing the stuff and taking the action, but you've a much higher chance of doing it when you put yourself in the proximity of other people who are doing it too. It's just like Nirvana. You know, you go to Nirvana, you're looking at all these shredded people walking around the place. Nirvana's a gym here in Bali, by the way. You go to Nirvana, all these people are shredded. What do you want to do? Naturally, you just want to be shredded as well. You surround yourself with all these people who are doing like, you know, we have a little kind of breakout mastermind group that we have on Facebook, and these guys are just like, yeah, just did 120K this month, just did 109K this month. And it's like, well, fuck, that's the level, like that's the standard. It's just a normal conversation.
Yeah.
And, you know, to do things like this over here is just a normal conversation.
That's a really interesting point that you bring up there, normalizing that conversation of like those bigger figures, because it's funny, I don't know who brought it up earlier, whether it was you or Hannah or someone brought up the thing, or maybe in Damien, about the news back at home. It was like, oh, the news back at home, someone committed this fraud piece and it for $20,000. And in my head I was like, that's not very much. But to the average Joe, that is a lot. 20 grand in like a fraud thing is like a lot, right? And I think we've normalized the conversation of someone just making that like in a day. That now it's like, to me, and again, this might sound a bit wanky, but it's just numbers. Like, in that, like 20,000 to me, I'm just like, okay, cool, but like, all right. But I know people that make that at the drop of a hat. That's a massive key to success, is normalizing the conversation of like bigger numbers. And that's something like from our previous like environments, right? Coming from the hair world, coming from the barbering scenes, like that conversation still has to be normalized yet, I think, for people to make real progress. You know, and we're actively and consciously trying to create that environment for people, you know, for them to normalize that conversation. And I think that is where sometimes the conversations get a little bit hard for us, because we've normalized it so much. It's like, how can you really be worried about $5, $10, you know, and there's people who make 20 grand in a day. So that whole thing. But one thing I will say about where we are in Bali, it's an absolute melting pot for like all those big digital business owners to be, right? And some of them, it's not even digital. Like, they may have a digital business here, but then they'll have a physical business as well. Their whole life's like this big moving portfolio, which is just incredible to be around. So the power of just putting yourself in those things and normalizing those conversations as fast as possible, I think is like, it's a secret weapon, essentially.
Yeah, man. It's like seeing how these people have used their business to like cater for their lives rather than the other way around, right? And like something that we talk about a lot with our people, and something that I think we've held down very well, being around these types of people making that type of money, you know, because even the figures that we just said, like, we know people making multiple hundreds of thousands more per month. But I think, you know, what's really important to hold down amongst that conversation is, but how does life look, you know? And like, revenue, like, is just, like you were saying, numbers. But it's like, what do you have to do for those numbers? And like, people kind of in the online space shy away from like the hours that they have to spend behind the computer in order to make that money. And like, what are you giving up and what are you sacrificing as a result of doing those hours? So for us, you know, the thing that we speak about with our clients all the time is like, let's build a business that serves your life, not a life that serves your business. And from our background, you know, and I think Bali has really made us explore our background a little bit more, and like who we're currently working with and who we could be working with, because just because we did barbering doesn't mean we are barbers, right? Like, I've never really been a barber in the typical sense, because I just spent most of my time making content and not always just cutting hair, and like, you know, I was probably 50-50 the whole time between content and hair and building a business. And like, I understood early days that my personal brand and my life was my business, and the set of skills that I have will take me from one place to the next, just like they did with cycling. You know, some might say, oh, what a massive transition from cycling to barber, but it's like, but like, I still use the same principles to like promote myself, brand myself, share my story. Humans connect best with stories. Why the fuck do people watch so much Netflix? Because they love stories. So like, I just knew early days that if you can turn your life into a story and you can tell it, doesn't matter how boring you might think it is. Everyone has a bias that they think that their own story is the most boring story in the world, but to somebody else it's the most interesting story in the world. And as I spoke about in that video that I just did, it's like, you don't need a lot of people to like it in order to have a very successful business. You know, we've made more than $1 million online from a very smaller group of people, you know, like less than 100 people, I would say, you know, and it's wild to think that there's people out there to think, you know, the barrier to success and entry is like 10K followers or 100K a month. So it's very easy to get, like, I guess to wrap up the point and where it started, is it's very easy to have the veil pulled over your eyes in the online world and like get kind of mesmerized by the numbers. But I think what we've navigated very well being here and being in environments with people who make a lot of money is keeping the lifestyle first, so the lifestyle first business. And like we've been very quickly able to be like, oh, you know, someone will come along, for example, and they'll just say, oh, you should try this thing, or you should do this thing, or you should just fucking have this product and sell this or do that. And it's like, we're good at like looking into the future downstream and thinking, yeah, but how is that going to take away from the current life that we live? And like, that's what's to be protected at all costs, because naturally it will just continue to grow. And if you're not in a rush and you have enough resources to build, to grow, to survive, and even to thrive, which we have here, then what else do you really need?
Yeah, that's it. Big part of the equation is that lifestyle first. Like, we are a lifestyle driven business, and that's what we teach other people to do as well. But there's a couple of caveats there as well. I think really good points that you brought up is like, something that I've learned about you is like, you've always been like that whole thing. I think you need to do a whole podcast on that. Like, my life is my business. There's so much deeper in there. It's like, what makes a great business run? Well, a great story, you know, stacked with skills, stacked with great marketing. And I think you've been equally as good at marketing as you ever have been at any given vehicle that you've chosen. And that is something I think people really could take away from this conversation, is like, especially now in 2025, try not to identify too much with the vehicle that you've chosen. You know, it's like, because that could equally hold you back. Try to build skills that will drive any vehicle. You know, it's like, it's almost like the universal fuel of a vehicle, right? It's like, can I find something that will universally drive any vehicle that I choose? And what is that? It's the ability to learn, it's the ability to be curious, the ability to develop skills, and then the ability to actually communicate them to people. So yeah, from the outside looking in, it might be like, wow, what a change, you know, you've gone from cycling, but inside you probably feel like, well, the common denominator is I'm still me, I'm still telling my story, and I'm just always communicating that. And what's the small part is almost the skills. You just say, well, I'm just stacking more skills onto the pile that I already have. And that's something that I heard Ty Lopez say many, many years ago. It's like, the future belongs to those who are multi-skilled. And so it's almost, in a way, we have to depart from the industrial age. We have to, because the industrial age set us up to be single-skilled.
Yeah.
And now, you know, he saw it, and it's almost probably from the birth of the internet. There were probably geniuses out there and future thinkers that thought, yeah, the future belongs to those who are multi-skilled, because we just completely destroyed the barrier. We completely destroyed the boundary of like what was possible for somebody. So that's the common denominator that I see there. And how does that tie into environment? Well, we're around people that have just completely like taken that whole thing for a ride. They're seeing how far they can push it in the digital age. And it's fascinating to see.
The biggest environmental thing, in my opinion, still though, is what happens between the fucking 6 inches between your ears. Like, you know, like we were talking about at the gym yesterday, you know, when you're doing push-ups or when you're doing squats or when you're doing anything, it's like, it's always navigating the conversation that's happening in your head, right? Like, so for me, when I was cycling, it's like, I just had to get over myself and make the post, like put it out there. And I think ultimately that's a story of belief more than it is anything else. It's like actually believing that it's worth something, that it's valuable, that telling the story is useful and people are going to actually like it. And like, I've done it for so long and got so much proof that it is, that when the naysayer pops up or when somebody else pops up, sometimes I still get pissed off. You know, you've witnessed me get pissed off with many things that pop up online. But I'm more pissed off about the fact that like that way of thinking is stopping somebody who might be thinking that it's a good idea for them to do it, because obviously we speak to a lot of people who have limiting beliefs about like posting online, or they're afraid to show up, and it's like, I don't like the projection of things. It's less about the words, it's more about like the projection and the limiting beliefs that are being transferred over, and that could be like just a couple of words online could be enough to stop somebody from actually living the unlimited life, right? Like living a life that they want to live just because fucking whoever has something to say about it, right? Because they have a feeling in their body that they can't understand. And like they're being shown a mirror and they don't want to share the stuff. But like what I picked up on what you were saying there is like the skill will always change. Like it doesn't, like the skills will change. Like if I was too married to the skill of being a cyclist or being a marketer or short form content or doing things the way that we've always done them, it's like, you know, we went the other day and spent fucking 10 grand on 2 cameras because we understand that like, okay, the skill these days is long form content. It's the fastest way to build trust. But when I really reflect and I look back on my entire journey, it has been a process of building trust. You know, I've been saying this to our clients this week. It's like, when in doubt, when you don't know what else to do, just fucking personal brand. Like, just post something. Like, personal brand, show people what you're into, show people what you love. Don't do what you think people will like, because that's where you set the trap up. And I see that happen all the time online, not just in barbering, but in other industries too. It's like, oh, maybe I should post this because that's what people will like, and it's either a self-validating thing or a thing to like manipulate people to make money, and it's just not sustainable. It doesn't have longevity in it, you know. Recently, which is weird, you know, call it weird if you will, I've been posting pictures of fucking fields and like trees, and like it's the highest engaging content that there is because it's speaking to a person, right? Like behind every screen, behind every profile picture, there's a person. And I think what people tend to forget in the online space is that it's called social media. Like in order for us to be social. And I just hate all the labels that people put on it, blaming it for things and saying that it's this and saying it's that. And it's like, it's hard and it's this and that. It's not hard. Like if you have friends and you're a good person and you have interests, like what's hard about sharing them? Like how is that hard? Like, why are you making it hard? It doesn't have to be hard. It's wild.
Reality is perception, right? And anything will be hard if you make it hard. And that's it. I love that. That's what I drill into our coaching group is like, always remember there is a person on the other side of the screen. And I bring it back all the time. The common denominator between all businesses, I don't care if it's impersonal or online, is there is a person. You are selling to a human, and oftentimes a human adult, because kids can't pay for their own stuff. Always remember that. Always remember there's someone on the other side of that screen. That's why the picture of the trees or the rice fields or the thing hits, because it relates. And that's a big one for 2025. Moving forward into the digital age, and digital business building, online presence, personal brand, whatever you want to call it. The difference between building a social media page and revealing a personal brand. They're two very different things. And now I think we can start to open up a little bit more on like, hey, here's this field I'm looking at. Hey, here's this thing. Why is that? Because it just shows people what kind of person you are. And it sounds very cliche, and a lot of people are saying it right now, but people do buy from people. You know, they don't buy from screens, they don't buy from phones, they don't buy from whatever. The internet, you, again, always remember there's someone on the end of the screen. So there's someone on the end of the screen that you're selling to. There's also someone on the end of the screen that you're buying from. Again, it's just people doing business with each other like they always have, with a different vehicle and a different skill. And I think if people are going to put that down and ignore that, they're going to set themselves up to fail. They really are. And we just see people do that at a really high level. You know?
And funnily enough, to speak about the environment, right? The environment of that's going on within your own head, but also the digital environment is one not to be ignored either. You know, I think it's easy to shy away from it, but at the end of the day, like if you are listening to this and you're a person who wants to live a great life, it just can't be ignored.
No, the reason it can't be ignored is because it's just an extension of the, you know, quote unquote real world, the analog world. The digital world is just an extension of the analog world. And it's just a new place for us to do business, or not even new anymore. It's just a different place for us to do business. And I think to ignore it is you're cutting off a massive portion of your options. And I get it, scary, it's different. All different things are scary, but everything's scary and hard until it's not. And most people hate what they don't understand. And it just takes a conversation with someone like yourself or someone like me, and I can reframe your mindset in about 10 minutes, and they go, oh, that doesn't sound as difficult or as hard as I once thought it was. It's like, yeah, because you were just, perception is reality. You perceived it in a certain way, which you thought it was hard because it was different, because you didn't understand it. And now someone's shown you the light and you're like, wow, I want to do that too. And I think that's just not to be ignored. And we see a lot of people ignoring it, and I think that's what gets us the most. Like you were saying earlier about people saying certain things about content and don't do this and be quiet and don't post that because of their own thing. That's holding them back. I see it as their block holding them back. It's also holding a lot of other people back. It's just, and it will just completely hold them back in a certain realm of life, and like the options that they're just cutting off themselves, purely because of their perception of the thing.
Yeah, just because you don't like it either doesn't mean that it's not happening, right? It's like there's a lot of things happening with AI right now, and Elon Musk is doing a lot of things, and it's like people will question him on it morally and ethically, and he doesn't care. Like he's like, I'm still fucking doing it. Like, I don't care. Like, so it's still going to happen, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. Yeah. And you know, you were just speaking there about like the 10-minute conversations that you might reframe people on. They get fucking undone when somebody in their environment comes along and says, yeah, but social media this, social media that. And it's like, yeah, but look at who you're listening to, you know, like qualify the source, like what kind of life are they living? You just don't hear conversations like that in places like this, you know. Everyone here is kind of doing a similar thing, you know, and for the most part, 90% of the time, people are happy.
Having a great time.
They're having a great time. So like, we see it a lot these days about like, people don't want a business, you know. A couple of people that we follow, like James Kemp, there's a guy called James Kemp who's fantastic, kind of critical thinker, I would say. You know, he looks at the world and he just critically thinks, looks at his environment and just observes and makes cool kind of things out of it. And one of his things is people don't want a business. And they don't. And people also don't want to build a personal brand because it sounds like work. You know, humans were lazy by design. Like, we're lazy by design, and that's for a very good reason, for survival. But you can choose not to be. People don't want a business. They don't want a personal brand, but they're the mechanisms in order to make money. What people do want is money. And if you have money, you're going to be in a lot better of a position than if you don't. So if you have money, life is just a lot better. And I know it's not the means and ends for everything, but it for sure solves a lot of problems.
It solves a ton of problems.
You know,
it links directly to survival. It's the things humans put in the way of nature, right? We thought, wait a second, let's put something in the way here, you know, to divide us a little bit from nature, or just to control the. Again, what does it do? The moment you insert a currency directly after nature, then you insert demand and supply tension, and there we go. Markets are born, and capitalism's born, and the way that people do business is born, right? And that's the system that we live in. So to ignore any of that, you're probably shooting yourself in the foot. And one thing I will say to people, like, is don't get again too married to like the job as you've known it, you know, just trading time for hours, because some people will say, oh well, you know, who are you to just, you know, talk about making tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars working a couple hours a day. Oh, it must be all right for you. It's like, yeah, but don't discredit it just because you don't understand it. Like, we've only been told that working hard, you know, 8, 10, 12 hours a day for pittance, you know, 5-6 days a week is a thing and noble, because that's the only way anyone ever knew how to do it. Like, yeah, I guess the harder you work in, you know, I guess a trade and a time for money thing, yeah, of course that's going to equate to somewhat of like more output in a certain sense, not always. But if we're just talking time traded for money, yeah, of course, they work harder, great. But like now, that it doesn't always have to be that way, because again, the internet, and there's a thing called leverage, and now you can leverage your time, package your skills, sell your knowledge, and there's a whole new way of doing business. So,
and a lot of talented people who can do it. And that's actually nearly what kills me the most, is there's a lot of talented people who can do it, but they just don't know how. They're in places where people are telling them that it's not possible.
Yeah.
And I think that's half the battle, is like being able to see what's possible, and putting yourself in a supportive environment. Like, you know, we're having the conversation of where are we going to end up next? Are we going back to Australia? But then we're even thinking, is Australia expansive enough for this season of life? Now, you can create the environments online, but it's just not the same as the full immersion. And if we're going to be leading a lot of people like we are online and helping them build great lives, we need to be in the places where this can happen.
Yeah.
And like somewhere like here, it's just like
Fully
the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
You know, we're playing games of paddle with some of our fucking inspirations and heroes, like people that we look up to and take inspiration from online. The reason we're here doing this video is because we took inspiration from that very guy, and like we're able to access these people here, to access the keys to the door are there, but they're not in places like Fermoy, but they're just not.
Yeah.
You know, and there's still people there who are doing cool things, but it's not helpful for the life that I want to live. I don't know any other digital nomads from my hometown. So I can't spend time in my hometown. I have to spend it where the digital nomads are. Same thing when I was in Belgium when I was a kid. When I wanted to be a pro cyclist, I said, you know what? Where do I have to go to be a pro cyclist? It's the same thing if you want to be a pro football player. Where do you have to go? Where's the best place in the world to go to be a pro football player? England. I went to Belgium. Now I want to build $1 million online business. Where's the best place to go? Bali.
Yeah.
You know, and up to now, Australia has been a fantastic place for me to build my brand, build my skills. It's been amazing. Don't get me wrong, it's still home. As is Ireland, still home. But at the same time, it's like you just got to follow where the best opportunities are sometimes, and you have to be brave enough to go after it and have the belief that you can get there. And like, it's like that story of the old bank robber back in the days. It's like when they eventually caught him, some guy was robbing all these banks in America. When they eventually caught him, they asked him, so why were you robbing all the banks? He's like, because that's where all the money was. And it's like, it's a very simple story, but it's the same thing here. It's like, why Bali? It's like, because that's where all the opportunity is.
Yeah.
It's like, why Belgium? Because that's where you have to go to be recognised as a pro cyclist. Why England? Because that's where you go to be a pro football player.
Yeah. Why digital business? Because that's where the joy and the money is right now.
Holy shit.
Wonder if that got caught on camera. With a bat or something, or a bird.
Fucking bat, man. Flying
But
bat.
yeah, like, why digital business? So many people ask us, oh, why have you stopped teaching hair? Why have you stopped doing this? You're so good at it. It's like, yeah, but I'm not married to the vehicle.
Doesn't matter what the mechanism is.
It doesn't matter about the mechanism anymore. It just doesn't matter. Once upon a time it would have, because I didn't know any different. But now it doesn't matter about the mechanism. It matters about lifestyle first, purpose, mission, values, follow the joy.
Yeah.
And follow the money.
This is what actually matters the most, right? Like,
Yeah,
and it's
and the mid.
You know, we keep coming back to it. It's the perfect business name because it can go anywhere, right? That's what actually matters the most. Living the unlimited life. And the only way you can do that is through money, making impact and having freedom. You know, there's also other things coming up for us lately. This was meant to be a quick fire. I know we could continue for days, right? We'll do more of these again.